Hello, my dear Franken friends, and welcome to Spookyou, your one-stop shop for all things ghastly and ghoulish. I'm your host, Barnabas Vixen. How horrible of you to join us. Curl up, invite your friends, and by all means, make sure those lights are out. That way it's harder to tell what may or may not be lurking around you. There's nothing like a good mystery, am I right? Tonight will feature a singular tale of devilish design curated by those wicked weavers of woe. And without further ado, allow me to pass the reins on over to our vivacious voiceover virtuoso Trey Falco for tonight's sinister story. Please keep all limbs and side covers at all times. We wouldn't want anything to go missing now, would we?
There used to be a guard who worked in a factory. There were no exceptional rules except don't let anyone in without an ID and don't go inside the working grounds unless absolutely necessary. The guy described the shifts as completely peaceful with no strange occurrences. He worked there for about 3 months when a factory worker came to him asking to see the boss. The guard obviously didn't know who the boss was, so he asked the employees section and went to look for his superior there. Except when he opened the door, nothing was there. Literally, no people or machines were inside. The interesting thing, though, was the fact that the noise of the machines was so loud that he couldn't hear anything else. When he looked up at the ceiling, his jaw dropped to the floor. Up there, on the ceiling, upside down, were people working on their daily duties on the conveyor belts, machines, etc. The guard jerked his head up and down, thinking it was a mirror or an optical illusion, but that wasn't the case, because he couldn't see his own reflection anywhere, nor the machines or people on the floor where he was. It was just then that he realized that the floor he was standing on wasn't a floor at all. It was a ceiling, and neon lights were hanging from the floor up. The guard suddenly felt dizzy. He described it as staring down from a very tall building, and then he got out of there, not sure what he had just seen. He told the worker that he couldn't find his boss and told him to wait for him or find him himself. Everything went down normally from there. The superior came and went, etc. The guard continued working and is still there as far as I'm aware. There was a guard who worked in an orphanage. On any daily basis, working in an orphanage would take a mental toll on its staff members, so you can imagine why no one wanted to fill the spot when HQ gave information of a vacant position there. The guard who got the job there had been jobless for a while and was aware of the potential risks, but was in desperate need for a job. The rules were simple. Stay on the orphanage grounds and let the caretakers do their job. At 9 a.m. every morning, the orphans would all gather in the big room. From there, the guards had to put on thermal goggles and inspect every orphan. If any of them didn't emit any heat while the goggles were on, in other words, if the goggles showed the orphan being devoid of the colors which showed bodily temperature, they were to be shot on sight. The guard said everything was fine for a while, and then one day he saw something wrong with one of the orphans. All the others were shown as yellow, red, and green with the thermals, whereas this one boy was completely colorless. The guard was caught off guard, no pun intended, and instead of following direct orders to just shoot the kid, he informed his partner. When the partner double-checked, he immediately pointed his gun and shot the kid directly in the eye. There was widespread panic as the other kids ran around and the caretakers tried calming them down. The partner scolded the guard for not shooting right away. The guard told me that he had started to feel sick witnessing a child get shot right in front of him, until the next thing happened.
Sorry for the interruption, dear listener, but I just had to remind you. If you're enjoying this series, then make sure you head on over to Amazon and pre-order the book from this talented author, Tales of a Security Guard, set to release on January 30th. Seriously, take the time to pause this video and go give it a look-see. Without these authors, our vivacious voiceover virtuoso would be picking pennies out of the couch to feed his family instead of narrating these amazing stories. At least now he has a hobby. I mean, would you take that away from him?
I didn't think so. Not only does it include the 12-part series that you're watching right now, but it also includes the Night Guard series that we've previously narrated on this channel, and more terrifying tales to fuel your insomnia-induced night readings. And while you're at it, make sure you head on over to their Facebook page, Scary Stories with BB, to keep up to date with everything that they're doing. And I'd also like to mention that this author is not our sponsor, nor have we been paid in any way to bring you this message. No, we here at Spookyou just want to remind you, our listeners, that the authors behind these wonderful stories need to eat too. And not only that, but they do deserve to be compensated for the work that they do. That about wraps it up for this break, so back to your story. The kid who was shot started writhing on the ground and producing this high-pitched scream that sounded like a rat being burned alive. The guard described the kid literally melting until all that was left of him was a steaming red, gooey substance on the ground. The guard asked what the fuck that was, and his partner explained. He first showed him some pictures of kids, except they weren't kids. They had completely white eyes, pale skin covered in purple veins, and sharp teeth. Some of them were slightly creepier, with elongated necks, emaciated extremities, or unnaturally hunched backs. Apparently, these creatures find their way into the orphanage, taking the appearances of normal children, and patiently await for a naive family to adopt them. In most cases, when that happens, the parents are usually found tragically dead sometime later, and the kid is placed back into the orphanage for a new family. It's unknown how widespread those creatures are, but one thing's for sure. This isn't the only orphanage where they were spotted. For Christmas, all the guards in the office where I work, except intervention, get a day off. Doesn't matter what shift you're doing, but by 5 p.m. on the 24th, you need to be out of the office. One of the guards offered to stay one year, stating that he and his wife were in a fight and he didn't mind doing a little overtime. HQ wouldn't even hear about it and threatened to fire him if he was found on the grounds after the aforementioned time. I figured it's just their way of saving up some money, and since intervention is basically always on rotation, it made logical sense to me. It wasn't until an intervention member told me what was really going on that I got the big picture. Here's what he told me.
Christmas is supposed to be a really happy time for everyone. You go home, spend time with the family, that sort of thing. But over here, it's one of the worst days of the year. Intervention members are fighting each other over who's going to take paid time off for Christmas. And I don't blame them. They know what comes for Christmas, and it terrifies them.
He took a long pause, staring into nothingness, as if remembering something, before continuing.
They put 4 units of intervention in the office for Christmas Eve. Crazy, huh? We usually have just 1 unit, and that's only in case of an emergency, but for Christmas, something strange comes around. The first time I saw it was about 4 years ago, and back then we only had 1 unit stationed. It was my first year in the unit, and as we were sitting there in the comms room, everybody seemed on edge, glancing at the clock every few minutes. I didn't understand it, but figured they were just irritated that they weren't with their families. 11:50 p.m. comes, and the unit leader simply says, "Let's move." I didn't know what this was about, so I just followed my squad. You know that building you're never supposed to enter no matter what you see? Well, we went in there, and the leader led us straight into one of the staff resting rooms, which had a huge fireplace in it. Before I knew what was going on, everybody's pointing their guns at the fireplace, and the squad leader looks at me and tells me to shoot as soon as I see something. I was a little nervous, to say the least, but followed my orders and tried to stay calm. In this line of work, if you lose your cool for even a second, you're a dead man. So anyway, we waited with our guns trained on the fireplace. Everything was silent at first. I heard my watch beep to indicate it was midnight, and as if on cue, I heard it. Some kind of noise coming from above. I thought it was coming from the ceiling and pointed my gun up, but the commander yelled at me to keep my gun pointed at the fireplace. The scratching from above got louder, as if whatever was there was going down the chimney. And then there was something that sounded like a thud right from inside the fireplace. And then I heard something that still chills me to my bone whenever I remember it. You know how Santa has his trademark ho 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 laughter? Well, we heard that. A very slow ho ho ho. Except it didn't sound human. It was as if there were 5 people saying it at the same time, all with different tones but perfectly synchronized. We heard another thud before there was another demonic ho ho ho.
And then a hand came out from inside the fireplace. A skinny, pale, wrinkled up hand, which grabbed the side of the fireplace as if to get a better grip. You could clearly see that this thing wore Santa's clothes, but the sleeves seemed old and dirty. I saw something that looked like additional fingers coming out of its wrist, but they weren't moving like the ones on the hand. It all happened so fast, but as soon as the hand appeared, everybody started shooting. In a second or so, this creature impersonating Santa popped out for a split second, and I saw a shriveled, pale creature with a dirty gray beard and red eyes. I thought it was my imagination, but I was later able to confirm that this thing had dozens of limp hands sticking out of various parts of its body, sometimes as full-grown arms. Anyway, in that split second, Santa grabbed one of our members in a big, blood-stained bag and just like that disappeared back into the fireplace. The commander gave us the order to cease fire, and so we did. We listened as our bagged teammate screamed in horror, while Santa dragged him through the chimney. Before he left, he gave us one final, mocking, "Ho, ho, ho," leaving us in complete silence. We never saw our teammate again. Year after year, this thing has been coming back on Christmas Eve, and HQ has tried various methods to stop it. Automated turrets, traps, etc. One year they even put clasps on the floor to hold the unit members from being snatched away. The one guy who got bagged that year, the only thing left of him were his feet, still clasped to the floor. Why don't we just leave it be, you may ask? Well, if we do, this thing will get out and bag someone else instead. Someone suggested once to just leave some low-life scum from prison as tribute every Christmas to this creature, so they may start doing that next year, if they can pull the right strings. But one thing is for sure though, it always comes back, and each time it does, it has more hands coming out of its body.
Welcome back, my darling deviants. Well, tell me, did you enjoy that twisted tale? Of course you did. I knew you had that air about you, that hunger for the horrific and the macabre. So, did we spook you? If not, then file a complaint with our complaint department detailing all accounts of non-spookiness you found in this video, and we'll get back to you in 2 to 3 millennia. Give or take a business eon or two. However, if you've enjoyed what you've just heard this evening, then make sure you leave a like on this video and annihilate that subscribe button. Such a small act of obedience is exactly what we need to put the food on the table around here. There's only so many days we can have refried kidney and toe jam hash before I'm absolutely sick of it. Spoiler alert, that ship sailed long ago. Now, I must bid you adieu. I've many things to take care of, and this outro is eating into my day off. Run along now. Have no fear, we'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday to bring you another terrible tale. Go forth, my ghastly gang, and stay spooky.